Check 1 2. Hi everybody, nice to see you. It is Monday. It is after the long weekend. Well, it was long for me. I didn't do a whole lot on Friday. I went to the Distillery District, took in some Christmas stuff with my kids. I kind of took it easy. Maybe took a few strips off some politicians. Maybe had some laughs at politicians that just apparently came out of the witness relocation program. We're going to talk about that a little bit today. We've got a potpourri of things to get to. Fun stuff to get to. Please welcome to the program my guest from the podcast The Fix, former fixer, political fixer, Dark Lord fixer, guy who's come from the dark and into the light. Please welcome Mr. David Wallace, ladies and gentlemen, at Pick 61989. He knows where all the stuff's buried. Nice to see you. How are you? You look good. Merry Christmas to you, by the way. You got the turtleneck on. You look very Christmassy today. I see what appears to be a stocking behind you, if I'm not mistaken. You got like a warm cup of Java. You got a couple of stockings. You're Christmased up for a fixer, dude. You really are. Good job.
Christmased up. It looked like it was going to be a Merry Christmas. We had the book launch. We've sold about 800 copies already. And I figured for the first time in 3 years, I'd be able to have a decent Christmas for my family. But behind the scenes, we've been fighting a bit of a battle. Four separate parties in Alberta have commenced legal action to try to stall the publication of the book. In fact, they convinced my publisher to hand over the manuscript and tell me that he cannot deliver. So I had to find a new publisher, scramble, which I did. Probably delayed things by about a week. But long story short, any profit I would make for the book, if I sold all 1,000, I'll probably end up losing about $6 now. But
that's all right. The book is called
there you go.
Okay, so you lawyered up now. Yeah, dude, log out, log back in again real quick because we're having a couple little tech issues, which is no big deal. This is a recorded podcast. We'll take care of it. But log back in again so you can. David Wallace, of course, the fixer. He wrote a book called The Klondike Papers. It's literally you can get it anywhere if you go to his Twitter handle at pick61989, pick61989. What you can do is you can order it from him. It is an interesting look at all the weird shit that he did for a living for like 20 years. When I say weird shit, he did some weird shit, and I love weird shit. I love talking about the underbelly of the world that a lot of people don't see. Generally speaking, Canadians, Americans are not part and parcel to the inner workings of how different political parties, people of industry, captains of industry, the elites and the elites, who all work together so that they can stay at the top of the heap. They employed David Wallace for a long period of time to do that. And generally speaking, it was people from the Conservative Party of Canada or different Conservative parties in Canada that work with different people from across the globe, which we'll get to a little bit of that coming up in a few minutes. And David recorded a bunch of stuff. He's got a ton of receipts, emails. He's tons of emails. We'll get to some of those a little later on today as well. And we'll also get to how and what and why, because we live in this wacky world where everybody's like, oh, yeah, I don't even know how those guys know each other, but they do. And there are people that get employed to kind of make that machine work. And David was and is one of them. So Klondike Papers, go to pick61989 for your link. Make sure you order the Klondike Papers. It's a great little book, story of a fixer and story of a rat fucker. Actually, one of the biggest podcasts in Canadaland history was about him, called Rat Fucker, which was absolutely phenomenal. Jesse Brown did a great job with that as well, by the way. Anyway, it's nice to see you, and we're kind of leading into an issue today because you just said you've been sued by 4 different people to prevent you from putting out the Klondike Papers, which have receipts. I as well was sued today.
Nancy, that I was just about to ask you about that. I have a few thoughts.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I got sued by Canada Proud, Jeff Ballingall, both organizations. Canada Proud, of course, proxy organization of Mobilize Media, which is the official, internet party, the internet agency of the Conservative Party of Canada and several other Conservative parties, UCP parties across Canada. They do all these funny memes like this one they did about me back in February. Remember the convoy? Remember that little party in Ottawa? Remember that whole thing? Yes. They put this out where they basically took a tweet of mine out of context. Yeah. Called me racist, said I was a disgraced radio host, and then said minorities of Canadians were tricked into supporting Pierre Poilievere out of confusion, which is Not true. But whatever. It's, if you want truth, you're not going to go to any one of their Twitter handles. That's for a fucking fact. What is the reason behind all the litigious? Like when you look at that, and I've kind of let you in on the backstory privately about the lawsuit a little bit, which I just got this morning, which I thought was fascinating and funny because this last week, Pierre Poilievere had a terrible week and we led the charge with that stuff. But explain to me, take me inside those rooms, right? And you've been in those rooms where, you're talking about shutting people up. Like, why and how? Like, how can an organization like that, which literally gets paid to spread misinformation on behalf of a client or clients, how can they just turn around when someone starts telling the truth about what they do and launch lawsuits? Like, do they not know what's coming after this? And what happens? Like, what's the thought process here?
The thought process is one of attrition. Usually, after an individual like yourself, it's not par for the course, and the reason is because you can fight back. You can afford the best legal help, and you can fight this. This is a desperate measure. The very first go-to move for these people is to sue, utilizing slap suits. This is their bread and butter. You see, the truth doesn't matter. In fact, the more true something is, the quicker the lawsuit is filed. And they count on the fact that they can outspend the truth. And that's what they've done. That's what they did with me. And that's what they hope to accomplish with you. I mean, this is the first of many. They will bury you with paper. And I think that Canadians, however, will get an opportunity during these proceedings to discover the truth, because I'm quite sure that you're not going to fold up like a cheap suit like most people do.
No, I don't plan on it. I don't have that bone in my body. The one that's like, oh, I just want to hide. I don't like hiding. I'm one of those guys that likes to lead with his chin and has got no problem doing it. But when you say bury people, is it a strategy? Like, if you live in Canada, right? In the United States, there are different organizations, and they're all sort of interconnected through certain relationships. But is there a strategy behind this? Is there, and when you know about the lawsuit, when you heard about it, because I think it's funny, and we'll find out how funny it is, I guess, when we get there. But like, what is the strategy behind that other than to shut people up? Is it on behalf of a client? Is it on behalf of them? Like when you look at the lawsuit itself, it's basically, hey, he was mean, we lost money, we're suing, right? Or he's damaged our reputation. Now, keep in mind, these are people that spend, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars every year creating memes, really dishonest, in some cases, total lies about different political figures. In that case, myself, referring to me as racist, trying to defame me and libel me as a racist because, why not? I was hard against the convoy. They were hard in support of it. And this is like a year later, right? Like it's bizarre to me, but I was hard on Pierre Poilievere. So was that lawsuit from the Conservative Party of Canada, or is that lawsuit legitimately from them and they feel besmirched? Like, how does that whole thing work? Do they sue for other people? Are there people in front of political parties? Like, take me through that.
Well, it's curious, the timing, isn't it? I mean, a suspicious person would question whether or not this was motivated by your recent statements. And I'm here to tell you that my own personal opinion, from being in these types of meetings, it was completely motivated. You led the charge last week on a story that got picked up. It got picked up by a lot of different outlets. You even had Robert Benzie claiming now that Pierre outright lied about the alleged terrorist attack by the KISS Army, I guess we could call it, that flamed out at the border. This is motivated by their clients, and their clients are Pierre Poilievere and the Conservative Party of Canada. This is why you are being sued, allegedly, because I'm going to, the hell with it. I'll be sued again anyways. I'm telling you flat out, this lawsuit is in response to your exposing the unfortunate and the uncomfortable facts of Pierre Poilievere's parentage, his beliefs, his lack of truthfulness. You embarrassed the man. And because certain segments of the population picked up on this, you became a target. This is why the lawsuit was launched. This is a retaliatory strike, and it's meant to shut you up. And it's a highly effective tactic against most critics, because most critics don't have a platform. And even if they do have a platform, they simply don't have the means for a protracted legal battle. So in answer to your question, yes, this is a strategy. It's a tried and true strategy. And they will continue with this strategy, because if they can suck the oxygen out of their opposition, they can control the conversation. It's the same way with me with Canada Land. Canada Land did Ratfucker. They were sued by Shane Holmes and the Wenzels. They turned around and sued myself, the lady involved, Prem Singh, and Jesse Brown. Did Jesse Brown settle? Did Jesse Brown? No, he lawyered up, and he's going to fight this to the fullest extent of the law, because he has the financial means to do so. I apparently got a default judgment against me. I know Prem Singh can't afford a proper legal representation. So they cowed us, or attempted to, but they won't cow Canada Land. But what they have accomplished is the fear has been instilled in certain people that they won't make any more statements based on facts. Because let's face it, we're providing receipts, factual evidence, and the only defense against factual evidence and receipts is to sue somebody into the Stone Age and hope that the truth never sees the light of day. And that's what they're hoping with you.
You know what I find fascinating about that, David, too, is, it was a world-class story last week, right? When, if what you're saying is true, and if you believe that is their motivation for suing myself and our parent company, Crier Media, for a couple $100,000. If you're going to go for it, right? Like, Jesus fucking Christ. And what I find amazing is you pointed out the timing, where it's a world-class story about a guy who sped into the Niagara border in his Bentley at 100 miles an hour, big explosion, car goes all over the place, 2 people died, man and a woman, both 53, both from New York, both came from the casino, couldn't make it to a KISS concert. Apparently those Bentleys were recalled for a sticking gas pedal, by the way. Just wanted to point that out. And Pierre Poilievere, the leader of the Conservative Party of Canada, stood up in the House of Commons, and he was like, all right, that was a terrorist attack. Trudeau, you don't keep us safe. What's the deal, right? And he's been panned as not just irresponsible, but a fucking liar. And we rolled with it. And the engagement was in the hundreds of thousands and, millions, if you will. And it was everywhere. And we were relentless because it was not the truth, right? It was just not the fucking truth. It's like going into a movie theater and screaming a fire and then running out. Like that's the moral equivalent of what he did on a national scale. But it fits with everything that he and his proxies do. And so to me, the timing of it, as you pointed out, is incredibly interesting. And some of the issues that they cited in the lawsuit were from 10 years ago.
Yep.
Something that has nothing to do with any of the things here. It was like, let's reach into our grab bag of shit, see what we can load into a lawsuit and go for it. Right. Absolutely. And I don't, to your point, like, do they, you know me a little bit. You think I'm just going to go away?
No,
you think I'm just going to stop?
I think,
right.
They picked the wrong flower this time.
And they do with you too. Like, having the means to do something is one thing. But backing someone in a corner who has nothing to lose is something totally fucking different.
Absolutely.
Right? Like in both cases, your case, my case, anybody else's case, who, you stand up and you go, okay, that's a lie. That is not good for the people and the citizenry of this country. That is why you have stopped being a fixer for the Conservative Party of Canada. That is why you started blowing the whistle on all kinds of shenanigans. That is why you have been sued into oblivion. That is why you're in hiding in parts unknown, making a life go of it. That is why you were putting out these books with receipts. And you know what? Whether or not you can trust the process or trust the people who are delivering the information, your information comes with legitimate receipts, right? Texts, phone calls, as a point. I'm going to bring this up as a point. You want to talk receipts? Let's get to receipts. And the receipts here I find to be really fascinating are pictures of you with a gentleman who was literally kicked out of this country, right? Like, explain these receipts to me. This press progress report on Doug Ford's advisor sending Premier's office back channel information about meeting with Russian government. Like, this is probably one of the reasons why you've been sued and you're in hiding as well, correct?
Absolutely. I mean, I have a death sentence on my head in Russia. That's not a secret. People think I'm attacking the Conservative Party of Canada because I'm a liberal. I'm not a liberal. I don't agree with many policies of this government, current government. I don't think a lot of the situations that have come down the pike in the last 4 years have been handled correctly to benefit the Liberal Party of Canada. This is to stop the Russian Federation. I know these people. The photographs are there. I worked with Premier Chernyshchenko. Excuse me. He's the vice president of the goddamn country. Kilkerlainen, who was the handler of Pierre Poilievere. I'm doing this because I love my country. And these people have their tentacles wrapped around the leadership of the Conservative Party of Canada. That's a fact, all right? When you see me standing there in those photographs with the Prime Minister of Russia, when you see me with Krylov, when you see me with Strokov, when you see me with Mihailov, the Consul General, what more proof do you need that what I'm telling you is the truth? These people would have a party, would be celebrating till sometime, for Christ's sakes, if Pierre Poilievere were to win the election. These are their people. These are people who work directly with Stephen Harper and the IDU in regime change, not just here, all over the world. And sad to say, I participated in a great deal of those regime changes all over the world. Take the case of an alleged incident that took place with a former Canadian foreign minister in Stephen Harper's government with some Palestinian underage boys, okay? It took place in Israel. That was filmed. And if you do a little bit of research, you'll find out whose club that was filmed in, and that person's relationship to myself. I know what I speak. That event took place. That tape is used as blackmail material to this day against this country. This country. I've come out and I've talked about the RCMP. Transcripts, recordings are in the Klondike Papers. Indisputable. Yet, if anything I was saying was untrue, do you not think I would have been rolled up and shipped off to some facility just like that? Yet here I am. And the reason is because it's true. So the only way to cover up those facts, to keep them from going out, is to sue, harass, malign, and try to destroy or discredit the person. Since the evidence is solid, the only thing you can do is go after the individual. This is a strategy. Canada needs to wake up and understand that this strategy is being used right now. And I'm not telling you to vote Conservative or Liberal or New Democrat. What I am telling you is open your eyes and look at the information and make a real decision based on facts, not emotions. Look at Donald Trump. Donald Trump down south. People are convinced that he is going to come in and change the world and fix the tyranny and give people back their freedom and roll back mandates. Listen, guys, who kicked off Operation Warp Speed? Who told you to take a vaccine? Whether you're for or against it, who was the one who actually initiated the process of the vaccine rollout? It was Donald Trump when he was president. So now you're telling me, use the logic here, because the mental gymnastics is incredible to me. The man who initiated this is going to come back and is going to save you from the tyranny which he kicked off. It's psychotic, but people believe it. They believe it because of organizations such as Canada Proud and you name it. Take Back This and Freedom That. The same people who got behind the funding of the convoy and somehow convinced disaffected Canadians that the very oppressors who have put you in a position where you might lose your home or lose real freedoms are going to save you.
Yeah, and they're the only ones, right? And there's a bigger picture here. Like, you think about lawsuits trying to shut people up from handing out receipts or having conversations or talking about, hey, what's going on over there? Like, can we look over there? And like, no, don't look over there. It's an interesting atmosphere that we live in politically because I watched last week. Not only did Mr. Poilievre decide that he was going to, turn a car accident at the border into a terrorist attack, not only was he by the KISS Army. Yes, I forgot about that. But he also, that same week voted against funding for Ukraine, aid for Ukraine. And misrepresented why he rejected that aid for Ukraine. Said there was going to be a carbon tax imposed upon Ukrainian farmers, which was a unequivocal lie. CTV finally came out and they're like, yeah, that's a lie. That's a lie. He's lying. And now you're starting to see that sea change, right? Where you're starting to see people come out of the woodwork that usually try to keep their mouths shut because they want access possibly to the new government because he's leading digitally in a big bad way, which I believe, polling is also bullshit right now, but whatever. There is something bigger at play here. And in no way, David, am I like a warrior for, liberalism? I can't stand the Liberal Party like I can't stand the Conservative Party. One's just a little more dangerous and completely full of shit than the other. But it's bigger than that because of the history that you have. You can read these tea leaves, right? You know the relationships. The picture we just showed of you with was it Kalimnik in that meeting? Is that who you were with sitting there? By the way,
my lot with the mayor of Brampton, Patrick Brown, which should also make people shudder. People hear about this story in Calgary about the failure to convince Naheed Nenshi to accept dark money. Well, look, I commend him, and don't get me wrong, I didn't care for Nenshi personally. I found him flippant. I found him an individual with his head in the clouds. But one thing I'll give him, he was unbribable. His beliefs were real. But how many mayors in this country do you think didn't stand on ceremony? How many people do you think had their hand out? I can name dozens. Why can I name them? Because I was there and I bought them. And I bought them with foreign money. Foreign money. That should give people pause. But nobody asks those questions. And they don't ask those questions for the very reason you just brought up. The mainstream media is concerned with access. And backing a person such as myself or you could potentially cut off that access. However, to people like yourself and other independent media like Press Progress and other very brave people who have come out and written these stories, now mainstream media has to take these issues seriously. You forced a lot of mainstream media outlets to look at these issues last week and report on them fairly, transparently. And I also think that a lot of journalists and media people are sick and tired of answering to the corporate masters and keeping their mouths shut when they see lies being told to the people who consume this, and that they want to stand up and be real journalists. I was proud of Benzie when he came right out and said, look, the man lied. And I can't remember that young lady who stood up to Poilievere last week and actually had the guts.
From the Canadian Press. Yeah, she was doxxed.
and look what they're trying to do to her. And these people who are attacking her and saying, that because they want the Conservatives to win so bad. This is the general rank and file, the people who have been brainwashed into believing that these guys are their saviors and their heroes. They're not. And unless we have journalists who are willing to stand up and ask the hard questions, we will fall into a tyranny that people have never seen. If they think we're oppressed right now, let me tell you something. I was in Russia right after the fall of communism. All right. I saw how badly things could go and how quickly they could go. I saw reporters throwing off buildings. Okay. I saw homosexuals with their hands and their feet duct taped throwing off buildings. I saw anyone who opposed the view of the government killed, disappeared. There are friends that I had that I still to this day do not know what happened to them. We are cruising towards that at warp speed. And unless we have reporters like that young lady, or people like yourself, or people like Robert Benzie, who stand up and protect our freedoms right now, we are down on a slippery slope, and it can go just like that. Be careful what you wish for.
Well, what you wish for is a direct indicator of what you believe, and what you believe now can be curated, right, with information that is less than honest, with gaslighting, and it kind of brings us back a little bit to, the Canada Prouds of the world or those third-party agencies, those third-party proxies that are employed by political parties to spread that misinformation or in some cases disinformation, right? And I mean, it's very well documented. We've got actually an interesting GoFundMe. You can go to it right now and you can check it out. The GoFundMe is interesting because what we're doing is we're going to fight back. That is the goal. Our goal is to fight back. Our goal is to make sure that we understand what's going on. It's the Fight Canada Proud lawsuit and disinformation goal. And you can go to Canada Proud and you can check it out today. We would love for your support because we want to have a look under the hood. That's the interesting thing is I know how a lot of this works. You know how a lot of this works. And none of that disinformation, none of the kettling of people's minds, none of this ardent radicalizing of individuals happens in a vacuum. And sometimes it does, but it needs money and it needs people or organizations that are, and you know this, arm's length away enough, but still attached to the organizations that are trying to drive a result. And it's this, in this case, it's a bunch of big lies, right? The big lie that Pierre Poilievere and is good for Canada. The big lie that he is even who he is and he's from where he's from and his name is actually Pierre, which, we know it isn't. And it's amazing because, anytime you scratch the surface on any of those things, which are pretty easy to scratch the surface on, right? You get this nuclear reaction from the freedom of speech crowd. Nuclear reaction from the freedom of speech crowd. So explain to me how those third-party proxies work. How does that disinformation machine work? And how is it even possible and legal for an organization to say, hey, we're just in it for Canada, for the parent company to be employed by the party that spreads that disinformation? In this case, Canada Proud's parent company is Mobilize Media. They are the official digital agent on behalf of the Conservative Party of Canada. I believe the UCP too. I could be wrong. But explain to me how that works and why. Is it because it's just a loophole, or like what is it that, and you've been in those rooms, you know these people. Like, I mean, I saw a tweet or text from you and Doug Ford, right, a long time ago about someone or something, and the reference was, do you have any friendlies in media who can run interference for you? So how does that work in your world?
Well, it's these third parties are really they exist as funding vehicles to hire people such as myself or high-powered attorneys. I'll give you, for instance, prior to Patrick Brown being removed as the leader of the official opposition in Ontario in 2018, they were hammering away at a casino company called Great Canadian Gaming. Great Canadian Gaming was owned at the time by something called Burgundy Asset Management. Burgundy Asset Management, a significant portion of that company, was owned by one Brian Mulrooney. Great Canadian Gaming consisted of a gentleman named Sanjay Sen and the son-in-law of Mr. Mulrooney, Carolyn Mulrooney's husband, Michael. I can't recall his last name offhand. But Patrick Brown was hammering away at the fact that Great Canadian Gaming was, the alleged fact that Great Canadian Gaming was engaged in money laundering with organized crime in Ontario and BC. Word went out that Patrick Brown had to go. A lot of the money that were behind these companies and funds came from Russia. My boss at the time, who is now a prime minister in Moscow, called me in and asked me if I could do something about this. He gave me a package, and I quickly went to work. The package consisted of $250,000 in cash, and it was let known to me that there would be more funds available if I needed them. So I came up with a strategy, and next thing you know, Mr. Brown was removed. That was during the Me Too movement. You see, you use anything you can. With you, it's year-old tweets. With Patrick, it was a perfect storm and opportunity. Was Patrick innocent of these charges? Well, I'm not a judge. Where there's smoke, there's fire. But I can tell you that a great deal of the allegations were untrue. But that doesn't really matter. What matters is an individual like myself working through front people, straw men, whether they be third-party organizations, friendly media. We plant stories, we tell half-truths, and we smear individuals, and that can result in regime change. in your case, it can result in, hopefully, diluting the message through personal attacks or financial hardship. Perfect example, the Klondike Papers book goes deeply into the Patrick Brown job. It goes very deeply into the Sherman family murders. And what I find funny is the individuals who have spent tens of thousands of dollars in the past few weeks to try to delay publication or outright stop publication of that book aren't even mentioned in this book. I had budgeted it out that if I sold 1,000 copies, it would be a nice, tidy little profit, enough to have a Christmas for my kids and to get my teeth fixed. You see, my dental apparatus that I had was destroyed in Calgary. It was part of the same load that contained the urn of my unborn son that was pissed in. The last 3 years, 2.5 years, it's been nothing but a battle for survival. So these nice extras like Christmas presents or the ability to eat solid food have dissipated. But as it is now, I'll probably end up losing close to $1,000 if I sell all 1,000 copies instead of making any money. And that's what they hope for. Just for an example, they hope that you spend so much money that it's not worth it for you anymore. And that's why these third-party organizations exist. Take a look at the Olympic bid that failed in Calgary, I believe, in 2019, 2018, the plebiscite that was held. There was an organization called Alberta Can't Wait, I believe, that paid for billboards about the economic hardship the city of Calgary would suffer. And this organization was funded by billionaire dollars that came from oil and gas people and real estate families and developers. And that's how it's done. If you wanted to stop Pierre Poilievere in his tracks, you need to utilize the exact same tools that they do. And the problem is we're not organized. That's why a GoFundMe is a very good idea. If we had the funds at our disposal that they do, we could unmask every dirty little secret that Mr. Harper, Pierre Poilievere, all of his associates have. They would be front page on every mainstream newspapers tomorrow because we'd have the means to do what is necessary to unearth every single fact and to get them published. And I really hope the GoFundMe works because if it does, we could change the course of history. Hell, I'd do it for free. I wouldn't take anything for it, but we do need a budget to make it happen.
I think that is the key, right? You know, when we think about what it is that takes, it takes a lot out of you. Like, you know, when you're in the mix and you're trying to figure out, like you're talking about trying to get your teeth fixed. I mean, these guys have absolutely decimated, but I mean, you rolled in a pretty weird crowd where you're like, you know, like that the risk reward was heavy, right? And the risk was there for you, but still, I mean, you were asked to do a job that not many people were asked to do. You know how this stuff works on the inside, and you can understand when that collapses around you, how these things go. I'm just a dude with a website and a podcast, right? Like I'm just a dude that likes to talk about the fun shit, who people have kindly shared weird information with me over the past couple of years that I find to be dishonest, right? And so you chase that down because of the values and the virtues that you live by. And so, you know, if you can have the ability to be able to follow these things to the end, no matter what they are, you're going to move some mountains. You're going to figure some things out. But, you know, it amazes me that, you know, these parties, political parties, and they're all the same. You and I know they're all the same. Employ the aid of third-party agencies to literally hurt and go after private citizens or private journalists or people who are paid to be journalists and do their job or people who have podcasts for asking questions and making statements on behalf of people that are also looking for some kind of truth.
Look at the allegations against the former Solicitor General in Alberta. He hacked it, allegedly, hired somebody to hack reporters' phone logs from the Canadian press. I mean, when journalists are fair game, you should understand that you're extremely close to living in a police state. That's where we are. And this is what Canada has to look forward to under the regime of Pierre Poilievere. You're going to have reporters who are too cowed to tell any story because they'll be afraid for their own lives or personal safety. I'm telling you, that is coming. Look at the tactics that have been used so far. Look at anybody who has made a peep. There's allegations of former political aides, staffers, who may or may not have been romantically involved with leaders of oppositions who die in their sleep. And, allegedly might have been the reason for said leader of official opposition not running in 2020 at the last minute. But early 2021, that alleged reason for or roadblock to that leadership bid disappeared. This is what's happening. People need to understand what's running in the background and look into things. The mainstream media will not do it alone. They need to be prodded. And I think it's starting to happen. And that's why guys like you are dangerous. You say you're just having a little fun and exposing lies. Well, that fun and exposing lies starts conversations, and things become too big to ignore. You called it on the attack on the Rainbow Bridge. You said what was going on. You said that this man outright lied and tried to claim a terrorist attack. And he did this, and it's indisputable. The timestamps are there. He outright lied. Did he apologize? Did he issue a retraction? No. They don't do that.
No, dude, you know what he did? He went after the reporter who asked him how he felt about jumping the gun and calling a car accident at the border a terrorist attack and a threat against Canada that the prime minister of this country was not standing up for effectively, right? That I'm paraphrasing, but that's what she said. And then literally went on what I'd think is a misogynist tear, because he only ever does that to women that I've ever seen. He only ever goes after female reporters like that.
I hate to say it, but you're a pussy, Pierre. You're a coward and you're a pussy. And if you don't like it, you know what? Pick up the phone. I'm sure some of your dirtbag friends who hired me to clean up their filthy messes can give me my number.
Yeah. Now, dude, you bring up a great point. And it's not like the rest of us didn't see how he reacted to that and what it meant. You know what I mean? And I feel, it's part of it is I'm like, do you really take us for fucking idiots? Like, do you really think after all this, I'm not going to mortgage my life to get after it? Like, do you really think that everybody sits back and goes, oh, yeah, I just buy that. Canadian press may have lied in an article at some point in time, which is like, you guys set a Guinness Book World Record for lying once. And I'm like, Jesus fucking Christ, are you serious, man? Just answer the goddamn question. Like, did you really mean to completely lie, totally lie, on purpose, gaslight and misrepresent what happened to scare the shit out of Canadians, to continue to divide them against this country and its institutions? You can say what you like about its institutions. Not a big fan of the political institutions in this country either. But did you do that on purpose? And then you do that on purpose, and it gets the gas of all the people that are in those circles, right? The third party proxies, whether it be the Canada Prouds or the Ontario Prouds or the Charlie Kirks or the Matt Walshes or, the Jordan Petersons. It's amazing to me, the similarities, the timing, then the support that gaslighting gets from the same strategic individuals, brands, and people who repeat the same hateful disinformation and misinformation. And my theory is, hey, listen, because they have to, right? They don't have a choice.
It's bought and paid for. It's on brand. This is where these people make their money. They will overlook or forgive any lie, any atrocity, any filth that their side commits simply to keep the money flowing into their pockets. This isn't about doing what's right. And I'm not saying this from a liberal perspective. I don't care. I would not vote for the Liberal Party. I will not vote for the Conservative Party simply because they cease to exist. This is now the Stephen Harper Party of Canada. But if you want me to vote Conservative, produce one. I probably would, because our country's a mess. North America's a mess. But we don't have many good alternatives. What we have right now is an individual who is running to gain control of this country for his corporate interests, who have zero compulsion to tell the truth. They're using the dissatisfaction that this country has about a tired regime, and people are going to vote conservative. Conservative supporters are going to vote conservative no matter what. It's a given at this point, and that's because they hate Trudeau. They're not voting for something. They're voting against something. But
well,
be careful what you're voting for.
Well, not just be careful what you're voting for. I mean, it's. I will give them credit. I mean, in terms of gaslighting, libel, and defamation, not just calling me racist or insinuating that I'm racist, they managed to couple that into a "Dear Liberals, you're not entitled to the votes of minorities of Canadians." It's like,
what about it?
Like,
the only defense they have, because they can't argue the facts. The facts are manifest. They're there. They can't argue them. All they can do is try to intimidate or smear people, and they'll use anything they have at their disposal. What does any statement that you made last week have to do with the Liberal Party of Canada?
None.
But that's the whole point. If they can bury you with enough bullshit and spin doctoring, they can convince people who hate Trudeau with a passion that you are pro-Trudeau, and that's the only reason you're going after Pierre and the Conservative Party. They're not looking at the facts of the matter. This has nothing to do with the Liberal Party of Canada. Screw it. Let's talk about the facts.
Yeah. And the facts are, in Pierre's case that we've uncovered, is that, and we said this last week, and I find this interesting too, right? Because the only people that like choose to hide their real names or what their names were or who they are or where they're from are people with some things to hide. Like, the Premier of Alberta, Danielle Smith, her real name is Marlena Kolodnicki or something like that. I think that I've got that right. And I'm not sure of what Pierre's original last name was. I know there's an adoption story in there. I know he looks suspiciously like Stephen Harper's lawyer, who's also Ezra Levent's lawyer. Probably a reason I got sued today, in my estimation. I could be wrong. It's just my opinion. But like, we've been talking about those things in terms of, this is suspicious. We would like to look into it. And we ask those questions, but it's to the point. And again, from the people who are like, we want freedom of speech. We're freedom of speech absolutists. We should be able to have any conversation in this country. What they're telling me is that I can't have those conversations. That's how I interpret it, David.
Absolutely. This is, I'll give you a parallel. This is somebody at a party who yips in somebody's ear, yip, smacks them in the back of the head constantly. When the individual turns around and drills that person proceeds to pick up the telephone, call the police, and have you charged. It's okay for them, but not okay for you. You can say anything you like about anybody you want, but the moment you say something, especially if it's the truth, they will sue you. They will set police on you. They will do anything within their power to stop you, to obstruct you from telling the truth. Why is that? Why? Why are they afraid of truth? That should be the only question Canadians are concerned of. What is so scary about laying the facts on the table?
That's really the big question today, David. Like, to me, that's the big question. It's like, hey, listen, we should be allowed to have these conversations, right? Where there's smoke, there's fire. So let's talk about the smoke. Let's do it in a non-litigious way, which we do all the fucking time. We had a conversation before we went on today, and I'm like, hey, we got to keep it in these arenas. And you're like, yeah, no problem. Because you understand how this process works better than most, because you've been sued more than most in these cases.
Yeah, I've got a lot of process servers at my door, so I understand how the process works.
Yeah, you totally do. But, amazing to me, and still to this day, amazing to me that, words and works don't match up and people still support those people, right? That the average Canadian will go, well, listen, this person that's like all about the freedom of speech, all about asking questions, all about freedom, removing the gatekeepers, wants to remove your freedom of speech and put gatekeepers in front of you to prevent you from even having the conversation about, hey, if this and that are true, then can we talk about what that means for this, for Canadians? Like, if any of my politicians are compromised, in the case of Pierre Poilievere, let's just take him as an example, okay? And I'm being nice. In the case of Pierre Poilievere, one of the most incredible things that I can't understand, I still can't understand it, why he won't sit for his NSICOP clearance, why he won't sit to get his top secret national security clearance background check. And so we ask those questions. We asked them all week last week when it came to him getting his briefings, his top security briefings, from what he said was a tweet that didn't happen until 20 minutes after he alleged it was a terror attack. It had to have been from Fox News. So in my mind, I'm putting those two things together. I'm like, okay, we got a politician who just voted down any more aid for Ukraine, which is exactly what Russian President Vladimir Putin wants. Then on top of that, we got a guy who refuses to sit for his top secret security clearance, who's in the lead by a majority, right, in the polls to run this country. I don't know how CSIS works when it comes to clearing a would-be prime minister, but I am shocked that no one else is. Well, a lot of people are asking the question now, to be honest with you, because I think we've led the charge there too. But I have no idea how this is the biggest story. What's that?
Another reason you're being sued. Because you can.
It might be. It might be. I just want to know. And those are the questions that we ask when we want to know those things, because I'll tell you why I want to know those things. I love this country. I love where I live. I'm an immigrant to Canada. I came here for a better life with my family when I was a wee lad. We got that better life in this country. And I love the fabric of it. I love the people here. I love the way of life. I love the inclusivity. I love the multiculturalism. I love our quality of living. I love the fact that we can have these conversations, or at least we could. So I want to tell everybody something that I discovered over the last several years, and it was confirmed today, is that the people who tell you they're stumping for your freedom of speech and it's the most important thing, when they're doing that publicly, they're suing us privately to prevent us from having that conversation, from talking about top secret clearance and why the leader of the Conservative Party refuses it. Why? Like that, I just want to know why. And if you can answer that question, why, which we've asked why, and if proxies can answer that question, why, as opposed to, insinuating I'm racist or suing me and telling me which is incredible that I've damaged their bottom line and embarrassed them to the point where they can't make any money anymore. That was in the lawsuit. It was the beauty.
Yeah, you're irrelevant. They claim that you're irrelevant on one hand, that nobody cares what you say, yet you're damaging them and costing them money.
Which is it? Right? And here's the problem, okay? I try to put my ego away for these things. They picked the wrong fucking huckleberry, because I want to see how this ends. I'm not the guy that's going to stand here and go, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, I'm going to crush, I'm not doing any of that. I want to see this through to the end, so that when we're done, we can say, this person was right, this person was wrong, and if it's me, I'll pay the piper. Happy to. I'm happy to stand there and go, I was 100% wrong. But I want to see all of it so we can surmise who did what, why these things happen, and whether or not I am right or whether or not I am wrong. Isn't that due process? Like, isn't that how this is supposed to work? But
due process. It's absolutely due process. I mean, if you look at some of the crimes that are going on in Alberta today, you have people who are being criminally charged to cover up other crimes. I get phishing emails all the time from people claiming to be Mike Trigno or Jonathan. I don't know for a fact that they are these people. In fact, I quite that they are. But I have people who play that game, right? And I'm told that it's been played with many people in Alberta. They get a series of emails from different addresses with leading conversations. Then they take your email address, try to spoof it, create conversations. Then they go to their crooked cop friends that they have in Calgary. Some of those crooked cops helped or tried to set up an RCMP officer. That's on tape in the Klondike Papers. But they do these things, and they have judges there who are tied in with these crooked sons of bitches, and then they railroad people into criminal charges and destroy them. I mean, there is no due process in Stephen Harper's neck of the woods. He has removed personal rights and freedoms and the rule of law and due process. And this is what Canada has to look forward to. On a national basis, this is how government under Pierre Poilievere will be. Now, is government under Justin Trudeau rosy? No, it's not. If we're honest, if people are honest, many lines were crossed. Many things that have taken place over the last 8 years should be looked at with the stink eye, and we should be able to get to the bottom of it. However, I will say one thing. I've seen fuck Trudeau stickers. I've seen effigies being hung. I've heard people allege that he's screwed this person or done that, or he's been alleged to have done everything but shot Kennedy. And people are free to say that. They're free to say that under this regime. However, the leader of the opposition, who has not even won an election for prime minister, if you say one thing about this individual or any of his partners or third-party affiliates, you are being sued into the Stone Age, and they want to take away your right to any criticism or any debate. What does that tell people? Wake up before it's too late. That's what I have to say.
David Wallace, ladies and gentlemen, at Pick61989. If you're interested in some of the receipts of his work, life's work, you can go to David Wallace's website. I think Klondike Papers is a website as well, if I'm not mistaken, where you can pick it up.
Yet, but going to, and before I go, one quick announcement. Spencer Rice and I have been talking recently, and Spencer is, of course, done some documentaries and has a lot of connections, and we've decided to proceed with a Klondike Papers documentary, which should be fairly enlightening. And some of the whole cards, such as recordings of developers who allege that they were misled, those are going to be in the documentary. So Canada, stay tuned.
All right, David Wallace, thanks, buddy. Great to see you. Give him a follow. The Fix is the name of his podcast, at Pick69. At Pick61989 is where you can get a hold of him on Twitter. Brother, great to see you. Thanks so much for your time, expertise, and backstory. Always good to have context. We'll talk to you soon.
Absolutely. Don't get sued.
All right, buddy. Well, it's too late. Have a great day, everybody. Really appreciate it. Follow your heart, follow your dreams, all that other shit. Appreciate this. As always, brought to you by our friends at Cantork, cantork.com. These are good people that make the best hard-working assembly torque wrenches. Right now, the new website. Go to cantork.com today. You can see how their shit works. You can see they are the best in the business. They are accountable. They manufacture in Canada. Any bolting or fastening solution for an industrial application, they do it. So check them out today. As always, brought to you by our friends at Muse on the Mic, Emily and Riley, maybe one of the coolest podcasts you'll ever listen to. Owners of Muse Massage Spa. Go to musemassagespa.com today. Owners of a body rub parlor, licensed, super safe, but they're in the sex work industry. Advocates for sex workers. Their Patreon account is phenomenal as well. Muse on the Mic is a great podcast. You can get it at Crier Media or anywhere you get your fine podcasts. And, of course, Ed's Fine Imports, his Gitch. We wear them, so can you. Use Ed's Gitch today, GITCH3. That's your promo code, edsfineimports.com. Luxury branded underwear, boxer briefs, pouch in the front. Have a great day, everybody. Appreciate you being here for a quickie. See you tomorrow. Bye. I'm so